If, like me, you grew up watching Jurassic Park, and now that you play Commander, you've always wanted to turn a table into a mini version of Jurassic Park and have your dinosaurs escape and run rampant on your opponents, I have a deck for you.
This is the Cretaceous period. I mean, this thing isn't on this thing. What?
Command priority. Make the plays. Be the problem.
So for the true undisputed champion of dinosaur commanders, we have Pantlaza, Sun Favored. I've built this to be a power level 7 to an 8, a 4 in the bracket system. It has blink synergy, which is honestly pretty broken. And like the movies, if you love Jurassic Park like I do, the dinos come out of nowhere and then cause a lot of problems. Worst case early scenario for your opponents is going to be, and I've pulled this off many times and it is fun every time, Pantlaza, just a dinosaur that's already achieved its value in the battlefield, like Topiary Stomper, a spell like Savage Order, and then you go and get Gishath, who is best in the 99, if I'm being honest. I know people have built Gishath for years, but you can stop Gishath with one removal spell, and Pantlaza is just a lot more resilient, in my opinion, as far as your overall game plan. But Gishath is still very powerful in the 99 and is a lot of fun to pull off this exact scenario. So you have Pantlaza out, maybe you cast Topiary Stomper the turn before, got your land, and then this turn you cast Savage Order, you sacrifice Topiary Stomper to Savage Order, go and search for Gishath, put Gishath into play, who has haste anyway, and then he also gains indestructible till our next turn. And then you can swing freely, and unless they have an exile spell, then you're good to go. But this is the worst, the early worst case scenario that you can pull off for your opponents, and it's a lot of fun to do it every single time. Early game, what we want to set up is Pantlaza, a big dino, and then one of a number of flicker spells that we have in this deck to take full advantage of Pantlaza's ability that whenever it or another dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, you may discover X, where X is that creature's toughness. Do this only once each turn. What's cool about this is that not only, say, if in this example you flicker that Galta and Mavrin and you have a trigger for 12 to discover, not only can you get another big dinosaur off that, but if you hit a spell that you don't want to cast right now, you just get to put it in your hand. If I hit something I really need, something that's going to help win me the game, like an Achroma's Will or something, and I put that in my hand, then that's just, I'm good with that. I spent, what, 2 mana to get that spell into my hand for later. I like it. Still in the early game, mana dorks and ramp spells. We're obviously casting big dinosaurs here, so we're wanting to try and ramp as fast as we can. So we do have Fanatic of Ronus and Birds of Paradise as mana dorks. Fanatic of Ronus is really great in here because he taps for 4 green if we have a creature with power 4 or greater, which is pretty easy to accomplish with dinosaurs. Then we have a number of your usual ramp spells, 3 visits, Rampant Growth, Nature's Lore, Farseek, and Cultivate. All just good for getting more mana on the board as quick as we can. We also rely on Artifact Ramp, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Talisman of Conviction, and Talisman of Unity. And then a cost reduction of Urza's Incubator, which is great as well. Early to mid game, I like to interrupt our opponents. So there's a number of things in here like this that just give us some additional advantage or interrupt our opponents. So Kinjali's Sunwing makes all your opponent's creatures come into play tapped, which is great. Hulking Raptor has Ward 2, and then at the beginning of your pre-combat phase, you add 2 mana, so just a way of giving us a little bit of extra mana. Bronzebeak Foragers is a good way of being able to get rid of one target non-land permanent that a player controls until this thing leaves the battlefield. And you can also pay X and a white to put target card with mana value X exiled with it into its owner's graveyard, and then you gain X life. Wayward Swordtooth just plays an additional land each turn is really what it's in here for, but once you get the City's Blessing, he does make a pretty good attacker and or blocker. And then Awakening Sun's Avatar is a dinosaur safe board wipe, which is really great in here. And it actually, the last game I played, basically won me the game because I cast this and blew up the entire board except for mine, and then was able to swing out with all my dinosaurs and a Gishath and just pummel the table. It was great.
Cutscene. If you would, do me the favor of liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to this channel. It would really help me out a lot, and I would really appreciate it as a small YouTuber that's just trying to get going and making content for you all. It would help me out a lot, and again, I would appreciate it very much.
Mid-game, loading up on value. Got a number of stuff in here that helps just get us further ahead. Vaultborn Tyrant is a great dinosaur that came out in Thunder Junction, and when it or another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life and draw a card. And then whenever he dies, if it's not a token, you create a token that's a copy of it, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Regal Behemoth is great for extra card draw at your instep when you're the Monarch, and then also you get to tap your lands for an additional mana of any color when you are the Monarch. Regisaur Alpha is a great flip off, say, a Pantlaza trigger, and being able to give your entire board haste is really nice. And when he enters, he also creates a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample. So really, for 5 mana, you're getting a 4/4 body, a 3/3 body, and everything gets haste. So good value there. Curious Allosaur, 3 and a green for a Vigilance Reach. Whenever a dinosaur you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, so extra card draw. And a pretty good body for a Pantlaza trigger since it has 5 toughness. And then my pet card that goes in everything, Smuggler Surprise 1, and then Spree for +2, mill 4 cards. You may put up to 2 creature or land cards from among them and the milled cards into your hand. +4 and a green, you may put up to 2 creature cards from your hand on the battlefield, and then +1 generic, creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. All of these modes are very useful in here. If you're not getting your dinosaurs, you can do the first one more importantly than the other two, but if you have the mana, you can cast it, do the first one, mill the 4, put 2 creatures into your hand, have the second part go off, be able to put 2 creatures from your hand in the battlefield, and then, just for good measure, give them all hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, which is great if you have something like Regisaur Alpha out and can freely swing with them. To further help keep cards in our hand and gaining advantage, we have another favorite card of mine, which is Escape to the Wilds. 3 red and a green. You exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may play those exiled this way until the end of your next turn, and then you may play an additional land this turn. So good for ramp, good for being able to have more cards available to you until the end of your next turn. Garruk's Uprising is in here for a lot of card draw, but also for trample for the dinosaurs that don't have trample, which isn't a ton. But when it enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. Creatures you control have trample, and then whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Elemental Bond is in here for the exact same reason as Garruk's. Whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. And then Rishkar's Expertise is a really good sorcery. You draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. And if you remember, we've got some stuff in here that's like 12/12, so you could draw 12. Then you may cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Mid-game setup for your big swings. Quartzwood Crasher is a great dinosaur that says that whenever 1 or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast creature token with trample, where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. So, as we saw with Garruk's Uprising, it covers the dinosaurs that don't have trample, but a lot of them do have trample. So that would then create a very, very big dinosaur beast creature token with trample to use on the next turn. Earthshaker Dreadmaw is a really great card in here for additional card draw, because when it enters, you draw a card for each other dinosaur you control. So ideally this comes in when you have 3, 4, 5 dinos on the field and you're going to draw that many cards. Sunfill Imitator is really great for copying another good dinosaur. I've used it before in either this deck or my Dr. Ian Malcolm dinosaur deck to copy something like a Gishath. That way I get 2 triggers for the Gishath. But whenever it attacks, you may have it become a copy of another target dinosaur you control, except its name is Sunfrill Imitator, and it has this ability. Okay, so Bonehorde Dracosaur, 3 and 2 red for a flying first strike 5/5 dinosaur dragon. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exiled a land card this way, create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token. If you exiled a non-land card this way, create a treasure token. So, mana advantage or bodies on the battlefield. Both are good. And then finally, on this section, we have Atali, Primal Conqueror. You can't have a dinosaur deck, I feel like, without having Atali in it. So, 5 and 2 red for a 7/7 with Trample, Elder Dinosaur. When it enters the battlefield, each player exiles the top card of their library until they exile a non-land card. You can cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. This is a CDH commander that's not really in here for that. It's just in here for value and damage. And then also its flip side, which is Atali Primal Sickness, Trample Indestructible 11/11. You pay 9 and then a Phyrexian hybrid or a green to transform it. But whenever it deals combat damage to your player, they get that many poison counters. So it's basically a dinosaur Blightsteel Colossus, which is really good. Mid-game still setting up for big swings. You have Galta Primal Hunger, 10 and 2 green, but we never cast it for that because it costs X less, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. And then it has Trample. So if you've got something like this Sakama on the field, then it's going to cost only 3 mana instead of 12. Trumpeting Carnosaur, 4 and 2 red for a Trample 7/6. It just, when it enters, it discovers 5, but then also if it's your dinosaur that you're using for your Pantlaza trigger, then you're going to get to discover 6 and discover for 5. And then it has 2 and a red to discard Trumpeting Carnosaur. It deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker, which I've never used it for, but it is there if you find a good use for it. Zakama Primal Calamity, 6, a red, green, and a white for a Vigilance Reach Trample 9/9. But more importantly in here is that when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, untap all lands you control. And then it has some abilities that you can pay 2 in a red, 2 in a green, or 2 in a white. And you either get to deal 3 damage to target creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or gain 3 life. Scion of Calamity, 3 and 2 green for a 5/5 with, importantly, Myriad. So when you attack with this, it's going to create a copy for each of your other opponents. And then whenever Scion of Calamity deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. So with this, if we have a way to give it trample, like with Garruk's Uprising, then you're going to be able to destroy, more than likely anyway, destroy a artifact or enchantment of each one of your opponents, which is huge. And then Ravenous Tyrannosaurus. It is a good dinosaur and I like it a lot. But it was more of a flavor add because of Jurassic Park than anything. But it is really good if you have some stuff on the battlefield that has done its job, like the Topiary Stomper that we talked about at the beginning of the video, because then you can sack those to this for its Devour 3 trigger when it ETBs and be able to add 3/1/1 counters on it for each creature that you sack to it. Then whenever it attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 other target creature. Excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. Mid-game, you're finally at the big swing turn. So we have a few ways here of really making this as, pun intended, devastating as possible. So Craterhoof Behemoth is not a dinosaur, but it looks like a dinosaur, and it is great in here for exactly what it does, and that is enters the battlefield and creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So Finale of Devastation, X and 2 green for a sorcery. Search your library and or graveyard for a creature card with mana value X or less and put it on the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle. If X is 10 or more, creatures you control get +X/+X, which is the amount of X that you paid in, and then gain haste until end of turn. So what you can do with this is Finale for 10, go get Craterhoof. Everything's going to get +10/+10 because you did 10 or more, and then when Craterhoof enters, everything's going to get +X/+X, which is the number of creatures you control, and have trample and haste. So just a double whammy there. And then of course you have Galta Stampede Tyrant, an 8 mana Elder Dinosaur with trample that's a 12/12, and whenever it enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. And you couple that with one of the 4 ways we have in here to give haste, one of which was Finale of Devastation, and you are swinging for a lot of damage. Board wipes, not a ton, but the ones we have are very good for our strategy. Apex Allosaur is kind of a board wipe on a body because when it enters the battlefield, it fights up to one target creature you don't control, and it has Enrage. So whenever it's dealt damage, it fights up to one target creature you don't control. You can couple that with Temple Allosaur being on the field, which says if a source would deal damage to another dinosaur you control, prevent all but one of that damage. And then just really go crazy as far as using Apex Allosaur as a board wipe, because every creature it fights is only going to deal 1 damage to it. And so you can just fight more and more and more and more things if you already couldn't with a 10-10. But if there's other big things out there, another 10-10 on the field, you'd be able to kill that 10-10, keep your Apex Allosaur, move on to the next one. And then we have Blasphemous Act, which can be coupled with either Wrathful Raptors or Temple Allosaur, because Blasphemous Act will deal 13 damage to each creature, but if you have Temple Allosaur out, it will only deal 1 to each of your dinosaurs. And then in the same way, kinda, if you have Wrathful Raptors out, it kinda combos with Blasphemous Act, because whenever one of your dinosaurs is dealt that 13 damage, it's going to then deal that damage to any target that isn't a dinosaur. So if you've got a board full of dinosaurs with Wrathful Raptors out, then you can Blast Act, kill all your dinosaurs, yes, but if you have 10 dinosaurs and you're dealing 13 damage to each of them, that's a lot of damage you can just point at each one of your opponents and more than likely take them all out. Interaction, we do run what I would consider a pretty good suite of interaction. Path to Exile and Swords for creature removal. Deflecting Swat in case anybody tries to do something that we don't need to have done to one of ours. Teferi's Protection for a break glass, somebody's board wiping and we really need them not to. Heroic Intervention for protection in case somebody also tries to board wipe. And then a Chroma's Will that goes along with our big swing turn, being able to have a board full of dinos, cast a Chroma's Will, and then our creatures are going to gain flying, vigilance, double strike, lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. It's 9 times out of 10 it's a game ender. So enchantments, we have a couple for haste, and then they also do a couple other things. Rhythm of the Wild, creatures you control can't be countered, which is important, but then non-token creatures you control have Riot, which means they enter the battlefield with either a 1/1 counter or haste. If you don't need the haste, then you can have the creature enter with a 1/1, and then the Pantlaza trigger that you get off that creature will be 1 bigger, which is really good. Then Fires of Yavimaya, creatures you control have haste, and then you can sack this enchantment, and target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So kind of a cool way if somebody has just enough blockers to keep your Trampler from killing them. You can sack this, give it +2/+2, and then finish the game. And then we have Growing Rights of Itlamok, which I love this Judge promo art. I got it really for Pantlaza because to me it looks like a lot like Pantlaza in the artwork as a baby. But when Growing Rights of Itlamok enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card from among them and put it in your hand, and you put the rest on the bottom in any order. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, transform Growing Rights of Itlamok. And then its backside is, for all intents and purposes, a Gaia's Cradle. It does tap for green if you don't control any creatures, which is nice, but then it taps for a green for each creature you control. Special lands for support. Of course, we're running Cavern of Souls in here to help stuff not be countered. Rogue's Passage in case we need to get in on somebody that's difficult. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, to turn all of our lands into forests in addition to their other types. And then Boseiju, Huron-Durers for some uncounterable removal for artifacts, enchantments, or non-basic land. So land count and deck list. There's 3 mountains, 4 forests, 4 plains for a total of 34 lands total in the deck. If you'd like to check out the deck list on my Moxfield, if you go to my link tree on either YouTube or on Instagram or on TikTok, you will be able to click on it, go straight to my Moxfield, see this deck list and any other deck that I've done a deck tech on for this channel will be there and ready for you to check out. Please subscribe to the channel. It really helps out a small channel like mine, and I'm just happy to be here making deck techs for you all. Till next time.